position. We gotta get in position. Okay.
Okay, so I watch Mel jump up on Zuni and do all the things, and I look at Baloth and I look at the shadowy Marmaduke, and I'm just like, I'm not riding that.
Oh, there's no need. Baloth snaps his fingers and Marmaduke sort of dissipates. Then from Baloth's side pouch, this carpet unfurls and sort of hovers a few inches off the ground. Baloth steps onto it and then offers you his hand.
What is the status of this rug?
Oh, it's inordinately comfortable. It's very easy to maintain your balance. I'm able to do so even when it's flying upside down. You'll be very comfortable. It's very plush. Sit, please.
As it's like floating in front of me, I like run my fingers on it. Oh my God, is this, where is this from? What is the thread count? Oh, this actually looks like it's like, oh, absolutely. I am in. This is much better than riding vermin. And I go ahead and I climb up and sit down on the back.
I know you
very
said,
well.
I know you said very plush, but in my mind, Baloth's got a flying shag carpet down. that's where my head went.
I picked this up in the 1970s.
I'm like,
Should have said, "Do you trust me?"
Is it orange or green?
I was about to say, let's be honest. If anybody would have a flying shag carpet, I feel like it'd be Baloth.
It could be Baloth. Yeah, I believe in the artwork. It's sort of blues and purples with some golds. Yeah. That sounds like a 70s color scheme.
Like I sit down and immediately regret it. Like, why is it sticky?
Well, here's the thing. Technically, the timeline of the Forgotten Realms right now, it is the 1470s, so it is not an inaccurate statement to say you got it in the 70s.
Oh, it's very much in style right now.
Get some bell bottoms under that robe.
There's all the colors. It's so vibrant.
Welcome to Idle Insights. My name is Dylan, and I am coming to you live from the safe and isolated confines of my home in Victoria, BC, Canada. I have a very special guest joining me today, but first, shout out and thank you to our moderator and co-producer, Sasha. And of course, a huge thanks to Dungeons & Dragons for hosting us on the official D&D Twitch. It is and will always be an honor to be here. I'm just noticing some hair sticking out the back because my hair is so out of hand come pandemic. My guest today is a comic artist with over a decade of experience in the industry, from creating Rooster Teeth comics and balls to that, all the way to working on Dungeons & Dragons themed comics for D&D Beyond and Idle Champions Forgotten Realms. Please welcome Luke McKay.
Hello there.
I'm just, I forgot to hit the button. There's the button. Now people can see you. I think they could see you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
First things first. How are you? How are things?
Oh, keeping in good health. Well, gained a little bit of weight, but I think that's happened to a few of us.
Yeah, you spend a lot more time at home. I know I've got some pandemic pounds I could probably stand to lose, but it is what it is. We usually kick things off with a question that gives somebody the opportunity to give a very long-winded answer. What is your D&D story? When did you start playing Dungeons & Dragons, and how did you get from there to here?
Oh, well, I guess I'm old enough to be around from first edition, but I didn't get to play first edition. There's just my parents were very very religious at the time. They're like, "Oh no, you can't be playing Dungeons & Dragons." So I didn't get started into that. I really enjoyed the cartoon series. I could catch that, but I didn't get to play until I was an adult. And I really started with 4th edition, where my wife put on a game for my birthday, and I just really loved it. 4th edition really got me hooked. I really got interested in that by watching the D&D Insider cartoons that they had for their ads. I think I was sharing those with you the other day.
Yeah, those are classics. I wish I could broadcast them. The one where all the monsters were interviewing for a job working for a Mind Flayer was pretty great. And then the gelatinous cube would just kind of like vibrate there, be like a Jello bowl sound. It was really, really great. Yeah. And the dwarf
Yeah,
that wouldn't stop talking, and yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was written by Ryan Miller and illustrated by Adam Phillips. Those were really great. So it was things like that that kind of really got me hooked into it. Like, oh, this can be kind of fun and silly. It's like, oh, so I was like, yeah, definitely hopped in. I hopped in with a group that was a little less fun and silly. They were more like grind and kill and fights. But fourth edition was a bit complicated to start with. So when fifth edition came out, and it streamlined everything, it was like, oh wow, now this is my new game. I just started playing fifth edition and just ran with it, and it was my new favorite game, and it has been for years.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, my biggest gateway in, I played AD&D a long time ago, and it didn't click for me. And I in retrospect realized that it was more of the group of players that I was with than anything. But when I tried 3.5, I'm like, oh, this is way more accessible. And then 5e, even more so. 5e I could convince my wife to play. So, it blew the door wide open.
Yeah, fifth edition got a lot of my friends playing who never really got into RPGs as well, because it just broke it down to be very simple. Just move and do one thing, and like, oh, everyone can follow those rules, and that was pretty easy to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the action economy isn't super complicated, unless you're a DM playing a monster with legendary actions. And tell me about your journey as a comic artist.
Well, my journey as a comic artist is a bit of an atypical one. I didn't really go to art school. I actually went to medical school. I was a nurse by trade, and I was working as a nurse at Vancouver General. And I was just drawing online for fun, and just like, just exchanging drawings with people, and just hanging out online. And I was doing that mostly with the Rooster Teeth site. And I just one day just decided to draw a comic. Like, hey, wouldn't it be fun if they had a webcomic series? Said, I'll just have the guys just draw, just of themselves. And the next thing you know, my phone was ringing and said, hey, you want a job drawing comics? And I'm like, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know anything. Like, I showed up in the office, and I booted up the computer and started to draw. And Jeff comes over. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm working on a comic. And he's like, in MS Paint? And I'm like, sure. Is there other programs? And he's like, yeah. So, I was really lucky that these guys kind of believed in me and hired me on to draw comics when I knew MS Paint.
Yeah.
And that was it. And so I quickly learned that I had to get an art education pretty quick. And so I just every day was like online tutorials, like how to use Photoshop, how to draw digitally, and so forth and so forth. Yeah, you can do it. It's a bit of a longer road, but you can learn how to art online.
Huh. That's really interesting. I never would have pictured drawing in MS Paint. I mean, I know it's technically possible, but this is the first time I've heard of somebody successfully doing it.
Well, I will say, like the Idle Champion comics that I'm still doing today, I still use a lot of the basic tools that are like MS Paint.
Huh.
Yeah, all the line work done in the Idle Champion comics is like those hard pixelated pencil lines.
Yeah.
Just drawn really large, and then I zoom out, and it looks nice. But yeah.
Interesting. Do you have any, knowing what you know now, is there anything you would approach differently in your path to becoming a comic artist?
Yeah, definitely. If I had any advice for anyone else who's learning to get into drawing or especially digital art, I would say get a part-time job at a print shop. Learn about printing. I was really quite surprised how much my art, and especially how I did digital art, changed once I learned what the process is from drawing to printing, and all the steps in between, and just the graphic design parts and the formatting and just everything along those lines of, like, eventually you want to see your work in print, so you should think to print at some point, like, as you can do a lot of fun things digitally, and you can manipulate a lot, but with print, it really wants like your art formatted in a very specific way, and there's lots of things you can do while drawing to make it print really well. And yeah, definitely learn InDesign, learn about printers, learn about a lot of the even offset printing process, like learn how your images would be printed.
That's some really good advice. That's something when I think back to going through going through communication school, essentially, which included print as part of it. There's a huge amount of that you wouldn't think to know or to learn about unless you had to for at some point. You know, trying to get something printed, and the printer's like, well, I need it CMYK, and it needs to be formatted in this way, and I need a bleed edge that's this big, and so on and so forth. And you're like, what does any of that mean?
Yeah, definitely, with the bleed, so many digital artists, why would you ever think to put a bleed on an image? Because it's just going to go up online, and the edge just needs to be the edge. Even for a lot of stuff that I know that may never ever get printed, I always like to format it and draw it as if it was going to be printed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the players in chat says they have a background in photography, and that helped their overall art a lot, despite only making basic pencil drawings and short comics.
Yeah, I guess one thing that also helped me too, as I said, I didn't really take any art classes, formal art classes, but I did take a lot of anatomy classes in med school. So.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, there's a lot of drawing in that.
And I gotta say, that is, as somebody who used to draw a lot, the one of the most difficult things to grasp is just human anatomy and how to draw somebody in different poses and hands and digits and just understanding how they move and work, and trying to draw that stuff is not easy. Huh. Is there anything else from medical school that transferred over?
Well, I mean, with anatomy, if you want to know how the mechanics of a hand work, nothing better to see a hand dissected.
Gross.
A little, yeah. It can be pretty gross.
Huh. So I couldn't help but notice you said Vancouver General, because you're not in Vancouver anymore, or Canada.
Down in Seattle. Met a nice American girl. Got married and moved out to Seattle here.
Huh.
But I'm pretty familiar with your neck of the woods.
Yeah, you must be. About what time did you end up leaving? I was going to say sunny British Columbia, but the weather's basically exactly the same in Seattle.
Yeah, it's been 5 years now.
Ah, cool. What's that transition like for somebody who transplants? Not a very far geographical difference, but there's a pretty important border in between.
Yeah, the immigration process to the U.S. is quite involved, and it took quite a bit of time. I think 14, 16 months, and a lot of fees and processing and lawyers and there was a lot to it. It was a lot more complicated than I really thought it would be. Huh. And of course, immigrating the last previous U.S. administration was a little weird too.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. That's really, really cool. And it's a good reason to move.
But I had lots of friends here in the Pacific Northwest. I guess first off, professionally, Penny Arcade, they're located here. And when I started up with Rooster Teeth, that was the first thing we did was go over and hang out with the guys at Penny Arcade. And I was actually, another huge blessing. One of the first things I got to do when I started the Rooster Teeth comics was I got to have a nice sit down with Mike Krulik, and he showed me through Photoshop, and he showed me how he drew and some of the things that he did to make the Penny Arcade comics. And I was like, oh wow, it's and
that's helpful.
that was extremely helpful. Just having someone who's been in the know just literally hold my hand at the beginning was amazing.
Wow, cool. Well, shout out to Mike Krahulik, Jim Dark Magic, for showing you that.
Yeah, the guys at Penny Arcade have been super supportive and super nice as well. They've been a great team.
Huh, that's awesome. I don't even know where to go from there because I wasn't expecting you to talk about that. There was a lot of art opportunities in Seattle here. When I first moved here, I was really hoping to work for a mobile game studio that was located here at the time. They shut down pretty much everything they were doing once, the moment I crossed the border is when they got bought out by a larger company and had to shut things down. But just as a fan, I did a comic series for their game. So with Idle Champions, I'm not too unfamiliar with we make a game, let's have a company comic with it too. So that's something I've done before, and I was really hoping to work with them. But there's a lot of art opportunities in Seattle here, which is quite nice, and because there's a lot of tech here and a lot of
arts that go with it too.
Yeah.
Constantly meeting like graphic designers and digital artists here all over the place.
Yeah, I would expect there'd be a lot of tech there, given Microsoft, Amazon. You know, there's a lot of big companies around Seattle and in the Seattle area. That's neat, huh? So I guess that's like it's probably a pretty saturated environment for being able to meet and greet new and aspiring artists and UX designers and so on and so forth.
Very much, and of course, with Wizards of the Coast being here, like when we first moved here, we were right by the Wizards of the Coast office in Renton. So I was literally walking by it every day, going, "Oh man, they're right here!"
Yeah.
So there's also a very large D&D community here, and it was ridiculously easy to get hooked up with players and meet other people. The Critical Role fan meetup here is huge, absolutely huge.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they used to get together quite often for the pandemic, and and there's a lot of meeting places. Like there's several like gaming stores that are restaurants that you can play Dungeons and Dragons at and have like a beer and things like that. It's really quite accommodating here.
Oh, that's cool. I look forward to being able to take advantage of some of those things at some point in the future.
Yeah, actually, I guess one bit of art advice that was always given to me is that you can't really be creative, but you can be in a place where creativity happens. And I definitely say that I've really liked the Pacific Northwest for that. Vancouver, Seattle, both just have a lot of places that you can just go to and do creative things like game shops and just like bars and restaurants and meeting places that just let you sit and play or game or draw or just be active that way. And it really helps. Like I find it helps a lot.
Huh. That's super cool. So one thing I want to bug you about, because you mentioned a bit about your D&D story, but you didn't tell me about any of your D&D characters or who your first character was or what you like to play. So let's hear it.
Well, when generally playing RPGs, I would always make the same character over and over and over again. I'd make basically a guy who looked just like me. If there's any sliders or filters, that's what I would do. But when I started playing D&D, the very first character I made, I was like, I'm going to play absolutely everything that I am not. I'm going to make a character who is absolutely, completely not me. And the first thing I did was a mistake, and I named her Branna Anna Ganna Anna. Just a stupid and horrible name. And she was like a wizard, like a big spellcaster. Like I thought when I would be playing Dungeons and Dragons, like, oh, all I'm going to want to do is swing a sword. That's what I'm going to do. Is swing a sword and fight and those sorts of things. But I thought, no, I'm going to stretch with D&D, and the first thing I was going to do is be a spellcaster, and that's what I did. Since then, I did make a character for one of my comic characters. I did a D&D mini series for my comic Balls to That, and so I made up character sheets and played as Balls to That a couple times.
Huh. And 5e, what are you playing now?
5e right now, I'm playing an artificer / wizard, and I'm really loving the artificer that has the battle master, or the battle master. No, the one who has a steel defender. Constantly having my steel defender destroyed and rebuilt and destroyed and rebuilt, and every time I have him destroyed, I design a new one every game. So pretty much every game I design a new steel defender for my team.
And what's your wizard wizard artificer multi-class like?
I think this is the first time I've ever really multi-classed as well too. So I started off just as the artificer, but I was like, oh wow, I want to grab this one. I just wanted one wizard cantrip, and the next thing I was like, well, actually maybe a few wizard spells, and then I just kept going and like more and more into the wizard. So I only took 3 levels of artificer. Yeah. But definitely artificer is a really fun class to play. It's my first time with that, and I've been really enjoying that.
Huh. Cool. Now you mentioned Critical Role meetups. Do you watch a lot of Critical Role?
I kind of watch it over Lauren's shoulder a lot, but I've fallen behind a bit. I was pretty like once the second, like in the first series, I was quite lost a bit, so I only caught it here and there. But once the second series started, I started watching it regularly every episode.
Yeah.
And it was only until about, I don't know, it was about the time the pandemic kind of really started affecting the show that I started watching a little bit less here and there. But unfortunately, it is really easy to get caught up on.
Well, easy if you have time to watch shows.
Well, that is the thing. There's been a lot of new podcasts or streams that have been coming up that I have been very interested in, and so there's a lot just to take in. So I don't want to say they're taking a back seat, but it's just a lot coming at once, and I can only do so much in a day.
No, I hear you. I used to aspire to pay more attention to all the ongoing like D&D streams, and it's a lot of content. If each show is putting out 2 to 4 hours of content a week, and there's more than 1 or 2 of them, it adds up real fast. And Critical Role, I think I'm quite far behind on now, because the last episode I watched was the one where they ended their Rumble Cusp storyline, and that was probably like 20 episodes ago, would be my guess, somewhere around there. So quite far back.
Yeah, that's about how far back I am.
Yeah.
And but then I do catch a lot, kind of like out of the corner of my eye, like every week, like.
Yeah.
But also love watching the AC Inc. Podcasts when they have those.
Yes, especially their live main stage games, because they only do a few of them a year. So
oh yeah,
those are easier to catch up on, because like, oh, there was 4 last year, kind of thing, or even fewer, I think, last year, given how last year went. But
and the one thing with both Critical Role and Acquisitions Incorporated, I just love when they bring out the mini sets, or like whatever set they're working on with their minis. And I don't DM too much, but when I do DM, I'm not very much theater of the mind. I am very much arts and crafting everything I can on that table.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, well, it helps that you're an artist, but like, so do you use Roll20 and do you draw sheets, or do you very much prefer getting to build Dwarven Forge stuff or something like that?
Well, I do a lot of paper crafts for stuff at home. I like to work in paper craft. Although my friend Chris helps me with some 3D printing here and there, but I don't do a lot of that quite yet. But for virtual tabletops, I do a lot of maps for that. Like I'll draw up a whole bunch of isometric maps. I like doing isometric maps, very much like a lot of mobile games.
Yeah.
Because a lot of my friends who do art here are in mobile gaming, and they do a lot of isometric art. So I've been kind of learning from them quite a bit. And so I've made a lot of maps and a lot of characters and minions and NPCs all in isometric format. And
cool.
That's how pretty much we've been playing the last year. Huh. And I like to think I'm fast enough drawing that sometimes, like during the game, like something hilarious will happen, and I can quickly draw up a character and toss it in, and as we go. And
yeah, there was a question in chat, somebody asking about emotes, and I mean, many of the emotes on our channel are emotes that you put together.
Oh, yeah, emotes are a lot of fun to do, and definitely it was quite fun with the last Unfair Seas stream to just kind of watch that and get like, oh, that's a funny idea. It's like, that'd make a good emote. Like, that's a funny idea. That'd make a good emote.
Yeah. There are sharks and parrots and hooks added, and then a bunch of faces. And people were asking about some of the other shows that we have, and I hadn't actually brought that up to you yet, but I'm like, some of our other shows could use some love that way too. But I'm gonna have to shuffle around our emote slots, because Twitch gates them behind subscriber numbers and other stuff, and I only have access to so many at each tier, and I'm gonna have to start moving them around. So just to announce to everybody in chat, the ding dong hello Sean ones are very likely to get retired in the near future, so use them up now. I mean, that meme's kind of played itself out, but yeah, we're gonna start changing them up, and once Unfair Seas ends, we'll see which one out of the shark, parrot, and hook stick around. Can you just bump them up a tier or move them to bits? Yeah, I could do stuff like that too. But I certainly want the most commonly used ones to be the most accessible, and then certainly the hashtag blessed one is never going below tier 2. Might even go up to tier 3. I'm just saying. That's why. Yeah.
I definitely want to do like just for fun, do more of Garwar and Mars and.
Oh yeah. Well, we have like 2 or 3 of each of them, and I don't know. I think that because not to talk Garwar and Mars have been doing episodes for us for a long time, but we have one dedicated pancake emote for Griddle Champions, and we have none for Champions of Lore, Champions of Psychology, Crusaders Weekly, or Bushwhacker Weekly. So, I would like to get some for them as well. Spread the love around a little bit.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, definitely more pancakes. Oh man.
Yeah. Definitely need some pancake emotes though. Yeah. They're asking for an Obo Lauren emote. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. We need more subs too in order to do this. I'm just saying, like, I'm sure there's some people watching right now who haven't subscribed. And if you have an Amazon account, you might have a free subscription you don't even know that you have. The higher the sub numbers, the more emotes we have access to. That's how Twitch does it. So, yeah, like it kills me to say it, but like and subscribe or whatever. Like, please subscribe. That allows us to emote more, and I would like to be able to emote more. Somebody's suggesting a Dr. B with his bow tie undone. Yeah, I mean, yeah, emotes are for closers.
We need one for you too, Dylan.
I don't know.
I think a Dylan emote would be great.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe someday. I'd like to get everybody else first. I don't mind being at the back of the lineup. Yeah. Anyways, what was I going to say? I totally sidetracked myself with an emote discussion.
Yeah. But yeah. Things about comics. Yeah. So. The Idle Champion comics, I have not. During the pandemic, I haven't really been to the print shop too much, and I haven't been printing at home a lot. I still got to do a lot of printer maintenance myself, but I really do. A couple of these last comics, I really want to print up. The last 2 posters, those poster styles I did for the Unfair Seas, I really want to print those up just to see them in print.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they turned out really, really fantastic. The Heroes of Erebus, and then the Idle Champions Presents, and then the Idle Champions Presents the Unfair Seas posters are all awesome. Yeah, I have a lot of love for them. They turned out super nice. And I suppose we could kind of casually mention that Idle Champions Presents is 2 adventures, and Adventure 2 will get a poster as well, which is. I keep thinking that it's far away, but it's not. We've already been working on designing assets and overlays and stuff for the change to the stream for the second adventure, because things have lead times. What can I say? But yeah, I love the posters. They're so nice, and nothing gets the cast excited like seeing their characters all together, and certainly. The inspiration that is Muppet Treasure Island was a really, really good one for this past one. Good timing too. The Muppet Show just ended up on Disney Plus.
Yep, and catch up watching a single episode of the Muppet Show every night with Lauren before we go to bed. It's one of the things we do now. One of our nightly rituals.
Yeah. We were picking random episodes. We watched the one with Carol Burnett last night. It's one of the later ones. It's like halfway through the 5th season, I think. But that was when the show had been so big on TV at that point, like 1980-81, that they could have any guest star they wanted, and so all the really famous ones started showing up. But I guess Julie Andrews was like in the 2nd season, so yeah, there's lots of good ones. Vincent Price in the 1st season, I really like that one.
I think George Burns might have been in the first. That was kind of odd. We clicked on season 1, episode 1, and it was George Burns, and then yesterday when we refreshed it, it's like it was moved to the 2nd season. It's like, oh, okay, that's odd.
Okay, you're not the only person who noticed that. I thought it was just me, because the first time I looked, the episode
so
order
moved the episodes around.
Yeah, they reshuffled it around. Okay, I'm not crazy. I could have sworn it was different, and it was. But yeah, it was pretty weird, especially sitting there, just watching. God, because I remember watching this show when I was a kid, and yeah, I mean, I didn't know who any of the famous people were, because they're all before my time, but it's pretty wild. Oh, good stuff. Anybody who hasn't seen the Muppet Show before, I gotta say, it's still pretty awesome. This is a really good question for you from one of the people in chat, asking if you could recommend a home printer model for printing your own art.
A home printer model for printing your own art. Let's think. Right now, I have a Xerox Phaser. What model is it? 7750 behind me. That's a nice dual component laser printer. And they got a HP inkjet printer, poster size printer. That's all right. But I've liked a lot of Xerox products. I guess the only tip with that is if you're going to use a Xerox printer, use Xerox paper. If you're going to use a Canon printer, use Canon paper. They formulate their own printer or their own paper for their printers, and it makes a big difference.
Huh. Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, and I guess, big tip for printing, in laser printing, there's two kinds of laser printing, or there's several kinds of laser printing, but basically there's like, for your basic home laser printers, you're looking either like at a single component or a dual component. And the single component is where they have all the little iron velvet just mixed in with the toner. And it makes it a little more gray, but you can get dual component printers that have like the iron separate from the toner. So it just leaves the toner on the page, and that makes crisp, clear colors. That's really a really good way to go. So if you're going to get a home printer, try and get a dual component laser printer. Okay. Generally inexpensive. It's generally, I should say, it's usually a couple $100 at the very least, but worth. There's lots of them out there, so you can look around, check out like Craigslist and eBay and those sorts of things. And that's usually where I buy a lot of my printer supplies, is just by looking around, see who's got something locally.
Yeah. Huh. Do you have any tips for people who, maybe their printer, they don't replace the ink frequently enough, and they can't find or can't easily find the same model of ink or whatever? Like, do you have any tips for trying to avoid that kind of thing?
A continuous ink system is actually super cheap and very easy to install. I was really quite surprised. I did that with my Canon printer when I had that. I think it was like $50, and you get enough printer ink to last probably your physical lifetime, like with a single purchase, like unless you're printing like thousands of pages a day. But a continuous ink print system is like where you take the cartridges out, and they have like little plugins that go in its place, and then just you hook up like huge tubs of ink, and it'll just never run out.
Huh. Okay. That's cool. I didn't even know that was a thing.
But if anyone knows how to clear an ink line, an HP printer, let me know. I got a jammed up ink line in my poster printer here, and I can't seem to clear it out.
Yeah, how would you flush that out? I guess you'd have to take it apart.
Yeah. But also looking at the upgraded model from that, I'd love to get the HP, like one of the HP 200 series or T200 series. But I'll do that. Mostly, like I do a lot of printing for when I go to conventions, and I don't really have a lot of conventions planned at the moment, so not really something to print much. So
no, it seems like there's it seems like one of the PAXs might try to be the first out of the gate, like June-ish, but that's ambitious given the rate of vaccinations. So we'll see.
PAX Unplugged is in December, and that's looking, it might be doable. That might be doable.
Yeah. I've never been to PAX Unplugged. I hear it's most people's favorite one.
Yeah. For PAX here in Seattle, I usually just go for the one day. Like I'll just go in for one day, do all the things I want to do in one day, and then the rest of the time I'm just hanging outside the convention, just doing the socializing. And because so many people fly in for that, it's like I'm spending the three out of the 4 days just socializing down at the restaurants or the cafes anyway. So I usually like a good 1 day ticket, run around, check it all out, see what I want to see, and then I just hang out outside, literally hang outside.
Yeah, it's one of those things. I mean, we always look so forward to PAX West because never mind that we, the last couple of years we had booth space and we would have people do signings at it, and we have guests and all that stuff. But like, there's the convention crowd of people that you see at conventions that you get to reconnect with and see every time. But we would be there all week. We would be there a couple days early. We'd, it's the one time that you get, for us at least at Codename, we get a lot of time with our coworkers that is kind of off the clock, where you just get to hang out, and we're going to get sushi or we're whatever.
That is one fun thing with cons, is getting a little bit of time to kind of visit a new town and whatnot.
Yeah.
Oh, and by the way, the last booth you did have at PAX was amazing. That giant gelatinous cube. It was so fun.
Yeah, it was magic. I was super happy with it. That was an ordeal to create.
That's actually one of my favorite parts of cons is building up the booth and designing stuff and printing and cutting and all the gluing and stapling and screws and hammers.
Yeah. If anybody's wondering, in their 5e or 3.5 or whichever edition of D&D game they have, gelatinous cubes have a weakness to shipping, a weakness to cold damage. Apparently, it can make your heat molded acrylic brittle, which can then shatter at an impact. And so, even though we took every precaution to it was wrapped in shipping cloth and stuff, each piece, and kind of shipped apart. It just, they opened it up at PAX South, and they're like, "Oh, we don't have a booth. This is in pieces." I feel for it was Margaret's first con with us, and it was Dexter's second con with us, and Eric went out, and they had an ordeal getting there, delayed flights. It took them 2 days to get there instead of half a day kind of thing. And they get there and they open up the booth to set it up just before the convention's about to start, and it had exploded. It was pretty tragic. Yeah. Oh man.
Actually, I worked in another comic series called Dungeon Construction. Not so strictly D&D, but quite in the vein of a lot at all. And the last Calgary Comic Con, we built a huge booth, the biggest booth I've ever built. It was 16 feet high and about 12 feet wide.
Oh God. Just nice, like a castle, or what'd you make?
I think part of it was a castle with big banners and I guess ramparts or whatever. But it was late May, early June, and a freak snowstorm blew in because it was Calgary, and so nobody showed up.
Yeah.
Oh man, the biggest booth we've ever built, and there's nobody here.
Oh, that's tragic. I remember I only went to one PAX East because I think the next year, last year's PAX East was the last PAX East. That was the last con that we participated in with our cubeless booth. But the year before, when I went, was when there was all the flooding in the American Midwest, and it heavily disrupted shipping container traffic. And one of our flats didn't arrive, which happened to include the entire physical booth, all of the signage, and everything Idle Champions. All of our assets are none of it showed up. And we weren't the worst hit. Utilikilts had not a single thing show up for their booth. The convention was just done for them. And there were other booths that had stuff like that happen too. But for us, luckily for us, we were working. We were a part of the Toonhound Studios booth at the time, and Corey managed to source printers who could emergency print all the signage for us at a horrific markup. But he happened to have the asset files on his laptop, so he was able to get it printed in time. And we spent half a day at a Target resourcing every table, chair, everything we needed, and just getting it into an Uber and getting it back to the convention and resetting it up. And boy, did that suck. Not the worst thing I've ever had happen in terms of working in events, but that's working in events. What can I say? Stuff goes sideways, and it goes real sideways.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, along with a lot of printing, I learned a lot of bookbinding as well too. Learning how to make hardcovers, soft covers, folded comics, all those sorts of things. Bought a lot of equipment for making hardcover books and soft cover books. But definitely, the first time I brought hard and soft cover books to a con was terrible. I used the wrong glue, and again, like, yeah, had temperatures affect it, and like they froze in the plane, and like just and by the time they got there, just all the glue was breaking off, and the covers were just falling off, and like so I was taking like a iron from the hotel and was just like lightly ironing them to get the glue to resurface and refit in.
Wow. Yeah. That's not a problem I would have
sometimes
pictured.
that's what you gotta do a lot of times. Like just you gotta learn your lessons the hard way sometimes. Like you just don't know until you do. Like I would have never thought like the cold of being in being
The
shipped,
uninsulated shipping container apartment of an
would
aircraft.
do so much damage. Yeah, just
Apparently it can.
yeah.
You know, it kills gelatinous cubes. It'll destroy your books. You know.
Yeah, I think people always wonder when they get those like boxes in the mail that have like a tiny little item in a huge box. It's like, yeah, extra packaging is just always worth it because you just never know. Like, put it like, well, I can use the bare minimum packaging. It's gonna get wrecked.
Yeah. Insulation layer or something that is you know, it can handle a wide array of temperatures, dynamic temperature changes and issues. Oh man.
But yeah, I do miss a lot of the cons. Like it was always one of the things to help me keep sharp drawing too, because the only time I really kind of do a lot of live drawing is at cons where like people walk up and say, "Hey, can I get a drawing of this?" or "Hey, can I get a drawing of that?" or "Would you draw me?" And I find like after doing a convention, like my hands get in such a workout. It's like I come back home and I go to draw whatever I'm working on. Like, oh, I'm faster, I'm better. Like, oh, like I got beefed up. Like it is kind of weird that some art and drawing does involve a lot of like kind of, you know, physical training. Like just you got to train your hand.
Yeah, and we were doing caricatures the last few conventions and working our artists pretty hard. Usually Alexis, I think, for many of them, just like doing caricatures for 10 hours a day is, or whatever, however long it is. It's just like, how does your hand feel? She's like, it hurts.
Yeah. I think the first RTX I did 250 portraits in a weekend.
Ooh.
And I think the year after that was about the same or more.
Yeah. It's one of those things people find out you're doing them and they start showing up.
Yeah. The first RTX, Bernie just called me and said, "Hey, we'll fly you down. We'll take care of all your stuff for the con. If you feel like drawing a picture or two for someone," like, "Oh yeah, sure." And it's like I brought no art supplies at all.
Yeah.
And someone said, "Hey, would you draw me a picture?" I'm like, "Oh, sure. I don't have any pens or paper or anything." And then all of a sudden, someone handed me some cardboard and a Sharpie, and I'm drawing cardboard and Sharpie portraits. And then next thing you know, someone's pulling art supplies out of the woodwork and like setting up a booth for me. I'm like, okay, I guess this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun because I said, "Oh well, you know what? Before I continue on, I'm just going to go get a beer and then I'll be right back." And someone said, "No, we'll bring you a beer." I'm like, "Oh well, thank you." And they just wheeled a keg over.
What?
Just wheeled a keg of beer over. I'm like, that'll do.
Yeah. Just hook it up to my vein.
That first con was in Austin, Texas, during the summer, so it was August. So it was like, and it was outdoors, no air conditioning. So I was like, I need to cool down. Canadians not used to the heat.
Yeah, how about an entire keg of beer? That'll do it. Oh, yeah. As they're saying in chat, that is one beer. Oh man. This just makes me think I have two sisters that live in Texas right now, and Texas has had a rough go of it the last few weeks.
Yeah. Oof. Yeah, I've been checking in a fair bit too with some of the folks I know down there. Unfortunately, everyone I know has been pretty lucky. A couple of people were without power for a bit, but we're somewhat prepared. And
yeah, I mean, my sisters have never seen snow before, so they're like, "What is?" I was texting them a few days before the snap hit them. Really, I'm like, "This is my barbecue under 1.5 feet of snow, like from the dump here," and they're like, "Holy crap!" But they didn't lose power, luckily for them. So they had friends and they had a whole bunch of people staying with them because they didn't lose power and they were able to keep things going. So they got to be one of those sort of like community hub households. But I mean, yeah, you do what you got to do. I'm just saying let's see. Okay, I will bug you about something after this. I got a few things to bug. I've got a list of stuff coming up, but it's not for streaming. So, Idle Champions comics. You started those in what, March or April last year?
Yeah,
Was
about that.
I don't know if I have the exact date.
April 22nd.
April 22nd.
Well, actually, I thought just in case I'd pull up all the files, and I've been getting better about putting the date on my files. I think Idle Champions were the first time I was like, you know what, right from the start, I'm gonna make sure to put.
I renamed them the date that they get posted as opposed to the date that they're made on my end. So, because I know when they're going to come out. But yeah, we've been through quite a few of them now. Are there any ideas you've been itching to try that we haven't got to yet?
I know, but
little peek behind the veil.
Mostly. So as I said, I do a lot of like maps for D&D, like in virtual tabletops.
Yeah.
I am working on like an isometric map of the Idle Champions tavern.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I want to get that all finished up.
Nice.
Yeah, I definitely would love to. I think that the tavern might make a fun dungeon in itself.
That's an interesting idea. The fireplace, when the fire goes out, stuff just starts pouring out of it. The fire is there to prevent things from escaping. I don't know. Something. You can think of something. That'll be cool.
Yeah, and I definitely want to draw more of the familiars. Like a lot of the familiars that are in Idle Champions are just too damn cute.
Yes. Yeah, our art team is very good at making things that are cute. Especially like fluffy beholders and snowy owlbears, and yeah, there's a bunch of very, very cute things.
And it's been fun, almost kind of like cutifying a bit Hugh-Man. He's been a lot of fun to draw lately.
Mm-hmm. I don't know why people like kobolds a lot. It's weird. Like they're really popular. Yeah, they're kind of just a strange little character, but I think definitely, yeah, once Chris Perkins made Spurt, it was, yeah, the kobolds were just solidified as they're the new cuteness. Yeah, yeah. And, you know, there's always Deacon Scalesinger and Ishi Snaggletooth. We've even talked about making Meepo into a champion or a character at some point. Meepo
Ooh.
being the kobold that you run into in the Sunless Citadel. I don't know if we'll actually do it, but there's been talk. They're like, people like kobolds. Should we make more kobolds? It's like, how about 3 kobolds in 1 champion? So it's just kind of funny. Oh man, I was totally distracted thinking about kobolds now. Binwin and a fluffy beholder. You know, we haven't done any comics with Binwin in them. I would definitely want to ask Scott about it first before we attempted that. But
yeah, technically there are a lot of comics out there with Binwin in them, so
there are a great number of them, yeah, that Scott or Tavis have drawn, or probably some other people as well. But I think Tavis is the one who draws Binwin's minions, and Scott drew a lot of the other ones. It's funny because when I think of the Acquisitions Incorporated team, I still think of Omen, Jim, and Binwin as the Ac Inc. team, which is weird because it hasn't been that in quite some time.
no. I really like how they did make it inclusive and expansive, and like, hey, let's get as many people in here. Let's really make this a big world, and then the moment that their source book came out, it's like everyone can join in. Like everyone can be part of Ac Inc. And I was like, oh, that was the moment that source book came out. It was just the best.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like that was a huge labor of love for Alyssa and a few other people who put a lot of time and work into making that thing a reality. It was very cool. Tons of Mike's art in it. Yeah, they did a great job of it. I actually had an opportunity to see that book before they did printed, because their advanced printer copy was delivered to their booth at the Stream of Many Eyes, and they showed up late. So we were walking past it. It was just sitting there in their booth, because even though the book didn't exist yet, and it was the advanced printed copy, it was delivered to their booth, and it was literally just left there on the table in the corner, nobody watching it or anything. And I was like, "Ooh, the AI book!" And I just picked it up and started browsing through it. And then when I found out which one it was, I was like, oh dear, and I put it back down. So I'm like, whoops. But it's turned out great, beautiful art, and also like it's nice to see quirky, some of their quirky monsters added, like the Deep Crow and stuff like that.
I really like that they made the enormous tentacle a CR2, so you could wild shape into a tentacle now.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I think that was the first thing I noticed. Like, wait a minute, you can if you're a druid, you can be a tentacle now.
That's great. Oh, I want to do that in a game.
I got a lot of the Eldritch Foundry tentacles on hand.
Oh, nice. There's a question from Obo Lauren in chat, asking about whether or not there is a specific champion you really enjoy drawing for just because of the art.
Ooh, favorite for just the art. Groma's jumping out at me. Drawn her a few times. I really like that. Of course, Hugh-Man. I guess he's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Hugh-Man is in like 3 or 4 comics now. Quickly approaching the most drawn of the characters, next to maybe Brunner.
Yeah, and I've been liking Bailoth, Mark Mears' character.
Oh yeah,
he's been a lot of fun lately. Just got a couple doodles of him to start it.
Yeah.
And of course, Talon.
Talon, right? Yeah, there's a few comics with Talon in them. They're good. They turn out really, really nice.
Talon hit Idle Champions. I was doing a lot of doodles of just like battle chairs for myself, just for some of my home characters, and it's like. So when I was a nurse, I did a lot of repair work on wheelchairs. I worked with a lot of paraplegic and paraplegic people. Yeah. So wheelchair repair became quite a side hustle, I guess.
Huh. Wow.
So learned a lot how like wheelchairs were made, and thought like, I've been personally injured by a lot of them, so I was thinking, there's a lot of ways you can make some really cool battle chairs. And I hope to see that a lot more in D&D.
Yeah. I know that Sarah Thompson recently released another version of the combat wheelchair. That's at Sarah Thompson on Twitter for those of you who follow, or sorry, at Mustangs Art on Twitter for Sarah Thompson and the combat wheelchair. Check it out. It's very, very cool.
Yeah, and Max Dunbar just recently released some NPCs that he's been working on, and one of them has a walking cauldron and as a kind of a battle chair.
And
it's like, oh my god, that idea is brilliant.
Yeah, good old Max Dunbar.
I gotta make some stats up for that real quick.
Mm-hmm. Of course he has. He's always releasing. He releases at least like one D&D character a day, it feels like. I was a big fan of his the collage of villains he did for Inktober a couple of years ago, where they had like just all these different evil D&D classes that just looked awesome.
Yeah, and that's been one of the really fun things with doing the Idle Champion comics and D&D Beyond comics and Dungeon Construction. I've found a really fun community with people who do D&D art. Like they're a lot more I guess I'm not sure if outgoing, but definitely online. So much more responsive. We'll talk to you so much more. Like, but whenever try to communicate with like other comic artists who do like Superman or Batman or traditional kind of superhero comics, I hear from them a lot less. Mm-hmm. But it seems that artists who do a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy art, they're much more passionate about it, and they get really involved in it, and they'll talk about like their character all day long, and it's great.
Yep. That's one of the things I've liked the most about D&D and everybody in the D&D community that I've met, is that if you ask somebody about their character, they can talk to you about their character for a very long time, quite easily, because their character is a big part of their identity, and it's something that's often a character that's very, very close to them. Not everybody's written 10 pages of backstory, but it doesn't matter. Like if you played the character for a while, they have a story. They have a lot of story.
And if you ask an artist about their D&D character, they'll be like, here's all my drawings. Check out my sketchbook. I got pages and pages of it.
I've drawn them 50 times. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Somebody had a question in chat. Hold on a second. They wanted to know if you could talk about how you get your ideas for Idle Champions comic book art and like what your decision-making process in terms of what you plan to illustrate is like.
Well, first off, I work with you on that. You help me with a lot of ideas. Like we sit down and powwow a lot. So big props to you, Dylan. Dylan's helped with a lot of the writing. And unfortunately, Idle Champions also has a lot of structure already built into it. They have regular events that we can look at and go like, oh, what's the next event coming up? What's the next thing? And it's like, we know because there are scheduled events. As well as there's a lot of like fun monsters in the game already. Like the Idle Champions bestiary is like, I'll just like click on that. I'll just go to CNE website and I'll just check out the bestiary just scroll through there and look for ideas. And like
we have
so much on the site already that you could just spend all day just
at this point. I think our artists have done the vast majority of anything that's like CR4 and under has probably been drawn out of the published 5 ebooks, and it's just like, and quite a number of things that are higher CR have been drawn too, although some of them haven't been made it in game yet. Short teaser, everybody. Some of the things we're adding this year include the highest CR monsters we have ever done by far. And very, very, very excited to see the player reaction to them when they finally make it into the game. But they're ongoing projects. I can't get into that yet. But it's cool to see that stuff. Which means that you will be eventually drawing some of them too for some comics, because I can't wait to talk about that. That'll be fun. And then Xenomonkeys would like to know if you use a Cintiq or some of their drawing tablet to do your art.
Well, actually, up until just a few months ago, I was still using my Wacom Intuos 2 tablet. Like that thing had a long, long life on that thing. But yeah, I just recently bought a XP Pen tablet monitor. Yeah, I've been using it for the last couple months, and yeah, it's the one thing. The Cintiqs were always so expensive, but literally this last year, more competition has come out, and so the prices have finally dropped down to like, if you were ever thinking about getting a graphic tablet monitor, now's probably a great time because prices have never been lower.
That's good to know. I always found it, you know, I for me, sketching was always my connection between me and the paper, you know, and the idea of using a tablet I always found very, very weird, and even stranger when I see people using screens to draw on, like drawing on them. Adam asked us if we wanted to hide some drawings in one of the big pieces of art we did for Idle Champions at once, and it was like inviting people over to his Cintiq to add illustration stuff into the background. I won't tell anybody what it is or where it is because, you know, that's not good. But I remember trying to do it. I'm like, this feels so weird to me because it just the tactile part of it is so different than using a sketch pencil on, you know, some heavy paper stock. It was a totally different thing.
Yeah, and like the earlier tablets, they had like a thick glass, like on like every monitor would have, so it felt like you were drawing through a piece of glass, which felt really strange. But yeah, these modern tablets, they have like a film on them rather than a sheet of glass. This is a thin plastic film, and so it feels more like you're drawing on the screen now.
Yeah.
One thing when you use it like a normal tablet and they're drawing on that, it has some texture to it, so it feels like paper. Of course, yeah, a glass screen, that's not going to have the right texture. But yeah, they've been actually putting some minor textures on them now.
That's neat. The more you know. Anyways, it is just about 2:00. I don't want to keep you beyond, you know, the time that we agreed to. So is there anything else you'd like to say, shout out to, talk about before we wrap things up?
No, I don't think a lot of shout-outs, but yeah, keep an eye on the Idle Champions socials. More comics are coming up, and hope to draw a lot more. Yeah,
that's the plan. I hope so too. I think it's fun. It's one of the more fun things to coordinate on, and I'm very much looking forward to the reaction tomorrow for the next one, because it's fun.
That is one of the nice, fun things. From going from nursing to doing comics, the idea of fun employment was never in my wildest dreams. But the moment I started doing this, it was like, you can have fun at work. It's like I never thought about that before. It's like, yeah, and so it really has been a blessing just working in a creative field and working with Idle Champions and working with a lot of gaming companies. It is something I never thought I could do, and then I'm just glad people reached out to me to get me involved, and I never would have done it myself.
It's a pleasure, man. All right, thanks for taking time out of your Thursday afternoon to join me. I appreciate it, and I expect more emails from me later today, probably.
Will do.
All right, Luke, have a good one.
Cheers.
There we go. Oh, there's a notification. Join me on stream. Or don't join me on stream. It's up to you. There were a couple other questions asked that were not directly Luke related, so I put them off until now. So just bear with me a moment as I get to them. The hidden combination for today's stream, the hidden code, was super easy, and somebody found it in like 3 seconds. But for those wondering or those who are confused, hidden codes are codes that you can find one of two ways. One, during a live stream, there may be a hidden code tied to something topical related to the stream, whether it's the guest's history, the character that just came out, something. For the most part, it's usually only Margaret and myself who do that, but sometimes Sean will do it as well. And this one was real easy. The other way is there is currently a sort of active mini competition, maybe, the 2021 Hidden Combinations challenge, I guess, that is active. There are 21 codes hidden in Idle Champions. I gave out a hint a while back when I first announced it, showing what the rewards were for the codes. Each code offers 2 of a type of chest. That's how you know you got one correct, because traditionally we only give away 1 chest with any code, but these ones each reward 2 chests. And last I checked, 11 of the 21 had been found, leaving 10 left to find. I gave you guys a hint last week for one of them and you found it, so I don't think we're quite at the point yet where we need to do another hint, but many of them are some of them are, I would describe as easier. Some of them are things that are deeply tied to character knowledge. I know that for a few of them I reached out to the character's creator to get a code made, and so there will be hints related to those later, because I also made a hint list for these codes, which I haven't done before, but this time around, just to make things a little bit easier to find. So anyways, once those codes are found, they are active until the clock strikes midnight on December 31st, 2021. So you get a long time that they're active if you can find them. Alrighty. Master Burglar. I imagine a few people have asked questions related to this. So there is currently a strange bug where after you destroy the Kraken on Area 50 of an Unfair Seas, or the Unfair Seas, the formation just stops progressing and enemies keep spawning, but your auto progress turns off. And like the current solution for that is to just untoggle and retoggle your progression, and it'll keep going. Last I checked, we're still trying to figure out why that happens, because that's an emergent thing that never used to happen, so we're not quite sure why it's happening now. So I would expect that bug to get fixed as soon as they can. Somebody asking me for hints at the CR level of some of the high CR stuff coming later this year. I won't. Even mentioning that there were some higher CR monsters coming was, I think, possibly too big of a hint. But I have been just absolutely blown away lately by the quality of the work that our art team is doing, because they just keep getting better and better. And hearing some of the plans and how we can integrate some of the more ambitious stuff into the game. But it's definitely too early to talk about any of that. That's a Q2 or a Q3 or maybe even a Q4 thing, depending on how things shape up. So I don't want to start talking about something and get people hyped up for it right away, and then it's like way off in the distance, because that's not fair. So I look forward to being able to talk about it more, and I look forward to our adapting more higher challenge rating monsters into encounters in the game that are more dynamic than simply you go up to a monster and you hit it once and it's dead, or it's got like armored hit points. Like I like it when it's a little more complicated than that. So I'm looking forward to it. Any update on the fresh fish bug? No. At least I don't have updates on that. Anyone know how to get Archon to be useful? I feel like by the time I can afford him, he just sucks. So that's interesting. So there was Archon has gone through a couple iterations over the life of Idle Champions, and when he was finally changed so that he had usurp power and bulk up as his abilities, and he would amplify buffs on himself or that other champions were getting. That made him viable and absolutely top tier for a time, and the meta has shifted a couple times since then. And so right now, the problem with Archon the Cruel is that you have to put a great deal of work into trying to make him work. That you really have to work on a formation where he is basically beside somebody who is getting every formation buff directed on them, so that he could steal it at a greater capacity. And it's kind of a lot of trial and error, and there's some things that don't qualify for usurp power, and it's a challenge. Archon the Cruel and Artemis Entreri are both like that, in that they are much more difficult puzzles to get to work really well than a lot of the other champions. And the reward is that they have these massive exponential buffs that can use those things. Like, I think I could still hit a higher numbered DPS, like formation DPS number, using Artemis Entreri than through any of the other means, despite the fact that I can't actually progress as far with Artemis Entreri as I can with some of the other builds. So I guess what I'm saying is that Oni Snake, I think, was the one who's asked this question, is that Archon is a real challenge to use well right now, and that a lot of the time players will forego using Archon for an easier formation to build around your DPS. Right now, that's possibly Zorbu for you, possibly Ashara, because Ashara's Paragon, Akir Sabal, and Bond lists have been expanded, and so Ashara is very, very viable. So yeah, it really depends on what you're going for. But that's also valuable feedback, Oni Snake. Like, you don't feel like by the time you get to Archon he's worth it. Okay, that's fair. Let's see. Will there be more events like the Unfair Seas in the future? So, hell nah, dude. The Unfair Seas is the name of the adventure for Fleet's Wake. Are you referring to the Fleet's Wake adventure, or are you referring to Idle Champions Presents the Unfair Seas? Because I can answer both questions. In terms of our cadence of events, we don't have any plans to radically change that. So an event every 3-ish weeks on average is more or less the standard. Sometimes there are delays because of, if we go perfectly every 3 weeks for an event, we eventually start shifting things off schedule, which we had to correct last year, and we had a number of gaps where we had 2 updates in between an event just to kind of get that back on course. That may happen again, but yes, Fleet's Wake will return this time next year in theory, and certainly after that, A Fool's Errand is coming. For Idle Champions Presents coming back, well, you know what? That's actually that's really on the player base. We had a lot of people watching the first episode. We have a lot of people participating in the voting and enjoying the system, and if enough players want it to keep happening, it will. I would certainly like to do it. I had a heck of a good time coordinating with B-Dave and Mark and Aaron and Vivka and Luke and Christina to make Idle Champions presents The Unfair Seas a reality. There will be this. The Unfair Seas is a 3-part adventure. So part 2 will be on Monday, the 1st of March, and part 3 will be on the 8th of March. We are definitely doing a second adventure over 3 parts. So that'll be the 15th, 22nd, and 29th of March for those episodes as well. It's not going to be a radical shift in cast because Mark, Christina, and Aaron will still be the main party. Like B-Dave, Mark, Christina, and Aaron are like the main little party that we kind of locked down for the whole adventure. But the guest stars coming with them for the first adventure, that's Vivka as the Black Viper and Luke Gygax as Mel. For the second adventure, that's going to be 2 different people. One of those people will be Adam Bradford reprising his role as Briv Steelmarrow from Beyond Heroes. And the other one is TBD. But I'm very, very excited for them, and I think it's going to be really, really cool. And I would love to keep going. It's, if you guys are loving it, it's, it makes you happy. You're enjoying it. You're watching it. I would love to keep going. Yeah. We would love to keep going. I don't know how else to save it. It does require a heck of a lot of planning in advance. Coordinating all the decision points where the players can manipulate the game required a lot of meetings and planning in advance. Now that we have a system more or less in place and we have a lot of the parts of it more or less in place, we were what's the word I'm looking for? The lead time for this episode isn't going to be the lead time for this production isn't going to be the same as the lead time for subsequent productions. We can there's a number of things that we can streamline to make it easier for us to make this. But I mean, this is also Idle Champions Presents is a 5-6 month effort on our part getting to this point. Booking people's schedules well in advance being the most challenging part because people's availability is what it is. We just, in a way, that's where the pandemic made things a little bit luckier for us because people tend to be at home. But even still, people have shifted their workflow and their careers and stuff as such that they're starting to become really busy at home too. So, that was kind of really cool to do something different, working with everybody. And then also, it's awesome to have our own TRPG show. Like, I love a lot of the content that people put out. I think Dungeon Scrawlers is great. I think Hack Inc. is great. I think Critical Role sets the bar very, very high. I think Rivals of Waterdeep is amazing. I think, Sirens of the Realm was great to watch. Girls Guts Glory is great to watch. Like, there's a lot out there, and it was not that anybody's doing anything wrong with them, but it's nice to have one that's ours that affects the game, because I don't know if you've noticed, but there are demon geese in the game now, and they're in the game now. That affects the game and affects the show, and vice versa. I think that's a super awesome loop, and I want it to, I want it to be fun for people. So as long as it's fun, as long as people are enjoying it, hopefully we can keep going. Alrighty, now that we are into week 2 of voting, can you confirm how long we have to claim the prizes from earlier days of voting? I want to say you have up to 2 weeks to get them. I should follow up with Peter on that. Actually, Sasha, I'm going to post something in our chat channel. Just so I can see if I can't get a definitive answer. Alrighty. I answered that question. I probably talked longer about it than you wanted. Do the addition of these more complicated monsters / bosses make the fact that Briv can skip them something you would consider changing? Oh, that's a great question for Justin. I can't answer for Justin because he would ultimately be making that choice and designing things accordingly. But I think, yes, I don't think Briv should be able to skip Area 50s, period. I think his ability should be able to work any time in the lead up to or after it, but I think being able to skip the Area 50 encounters is something that is fundamentally shouldn't happen, in my opinion. Because you can skip things like challenging boss fights. Valindra Shadowmantle's boss fight at higher levels was really, really challenging. Some of the other bosses at higher areas are really, really challenging, and I don't think you should ever be able to skip past those because they are intended to be like meaningful encounters that are a challenge to get through. So I don't think Briv should skip them personally. But I haven't got any insight into how challenging that might be to implement it from a developer's perspective or any of the things related to that. That is very much a Justin thing. So, not to pass the buck, Mike Baldy, but that's definitely a great question for the next time that I can get Justin on stream, which I suspect may be the end of March. We have something coming up at the end of March that would very likely be when I could get Justin to do a Q&A, which is 4 weeks from now? God, February ends this weekend. Oh, it's March next week, people. Did you guys know that? Wow. Want to Die 69. Will we be seeing any Modron updates coming soon? So, what can I say about that? What I can say is that a lot of the easier to fix, quote unquote, low hanging fruit bugs related to Modron automation and multi-party mode have been, found, replicated, and addressed. And we've reached the point where a lot of the stuff that we're trying to fix is either extremely difficult to fix or extremely difficult to replicate, if not impossible to replicate. And so what happens is the amount of dev time needed to fix these bugs gets larger and larger and larger as we get towards the ones that are very, very difficult to reproduce. Just during our morning meeting, one of the developers was talking about how they spent their entire day yesterday fixing 3 bugs because of how long it took them to actually replicate and then address them. So, unfortunately, this does mean that in some way, some of the quality of life stuff and some of the fixing slows down a bit, but I can safely say that we are still committed to doing it and that we are committed to dedicating more cycles towards it now that Idle Champions Presents has launched, because that was kind of one of the big tech chunks that we were working on in the lead up to that launch and getting it active across all platforms. And I'll let you know a little secret. It had to be built differently across platforms too. 3 bugs in a day is still good progress. I agree, Kuvu Plan, especially depending on what the nature of the bugs are. So, we're still working on them. We never stop. And another thing about it is, even if you think a bug is long-standing because you've encountered it many times over recent days, weeks, months, whatever, and you've heard about it discussed on the forums, don't let that convince you that it's not worth putting in an in-game support ticket, because every bit of context helps us to identify bugs. When I had Peter on a couple of weeks ago for a developer Q&A, he was talking about how there was a bug that they couldn't identify for the longest time, and then somebody added one sentence of feedback like, oh, I was tabbing over to my Spotify and changing things and tabbing back to the game when I encountered this. And they were like, what? And that allowed them to find the bug and fix it like right away. But they were just missing that bit of context. So, even if you are seeing a bug that you've seen a million times yourself, and you think that other players have, it is okay to still send us a support ticket, and it is encouraged, with as much context as you can help to give us, because everything counts. We want to fix these bugs too. Dark Cyril, who asked, now that we're into week 2 of voting, can you confirm how long we have to claim prizes from earlier days of voting? According to the document put together by our live services manager, Chris Dupuis, the rewards are available for the duration of Idle Champions Presents. So your week 1 and week 2 rewards, if you don't want to pick them up over the next 4 weeks, you don't have to, but they run until the end of the show. So that would mean you will want to pick them up before March 29th. So, yeah. Can you give a ballpark number of how many active players Idle Champions has? Unfortunately, I can't. One, I don't actually know that offhand. I'm sure, but that's also that's not the kind of, that is the kind of information that I don't think I am able to disclose. Yeah, sorry. I could say that when we came to Epic Game Store recently, that we now have more players than we did before we were on Epic Game Store. But that's the most I can offer you. Yeah. But I'm not really at liberty to go any further on that line of questioning. Sorry. So there were some questions from OG17 that I saw in chat that I missed. So it's not because I didn't want to answer them. I just missed them. Let's see. Pump. Oh, I got cut off by the thing blazing by. OG17, if you send me that question again, I will happily answer it. Star Chaser 43 question: were you Team Bubbles or Team Sparkles? I went with Team Sparkles because I was trying to think of what would make this character more irritating. So for those who are wondering what I'm talking about, in here under the week 2 voting, Sparkle or Bubbles? The Holly font introduced in episode 1 needs a name. What should we name this soon-to-be familiar face? And it was a choice between Sparkle and Bubbles. As you can see, I voted 3 times for Sparkle because I wanted Sparkles, because I want this character to be irritating. And I don't think there's anything more irritating than glitter, which is what I pictured with Sparkle. Like, just leaving glitter everywhere is the worst. When my wife and I got married a few years ago, and we didn't look at any of the cards we got during the wedding. We looked at them all afterwards, and we were sitting in our bed together, opening them and going through them, and some mother had a card covered in glitter with glitter in the envelope. So when I opened it, glitter all over our bed, and I gotta say I was livid. Because it all kind of happened so fast. I don't remember which one of my friends or family that did that. But let it be known, I hate you. I love you probably still, but I also hate you. Anyway, so I wanted the Holly font to be irritating, and I can't imagine anything more irritating than glitter. So I went with Sparkles. Bubbles is just, I don't know, it's too cute. Yeah. Anyways, I mean, they already set the tone by trying to pull the pin on Zuni's collar, spiked collar, the muzzle, right away. So they're coming. They're irritating. Alrighty. Okay. Question part 1. Oh, it's a 2-part question. Okay. OG. Let's see. We've said the cash items won't appear in the free-to-play gem shop out of respect for player purchases. So why is the cash Iris Familiar being given to all players? The Deep Seas players who purchases are upset, and their post-February 1st purchase date cutoff for support on Reddit is insufficient. The purchases are expected to last the lifetime of the game. Cash items will no longer be considered for giveaways, and could players who've given it be given another Familiar? Thank you. Too long for chat. Okay, so I know that nobody likes this answer, but I am gonna have to pass this along. I think I think your feedback is fair. I don't, as I understand it, when it comes to the differentiation between our in-game shop and our in-game gem shop, that the general idea was that anything that previously appeared through a means that wasn't a cash transaction could appear in the gem store, and everything that previously appeared through a cash transaction would eventually possibly show up in the wild offer system. And this was us trying something new. We did something differently. I could have sworn that the Iris Familiar, was that not our year 2 anniversary reward? Okay. Anyways, that is completely, it's completely valid feedback that I will happily pass along to the team. OG17. Sasha, can you do me a favor and make sure to capture all the parts of that so that I can give it the complete question over to Chris Dupuis? Because, I think that's valid feedback. Alrighty. Any question or any insight as to whether Armor Games will improve regarding updates? Internet Explorer, it took 8 hours until I could load Idle Champions. So here's what I can tell you about that. The WebGL version of Idle Champions, which is the version that you see on Congregate, on Armor Games, and on the C&E Games store, are our WebGL version of the game. One of our developers, Jacob, is the one who's the primary developer on that. Jacob was up until 2 a.m. working on it last night. To the point where he had to take a sick day today because he was up 8 hours past his shift end yesterday trying to address bugs for WebGL. So first things first, huge shout out to Jacob. That's an amazing effort. And, if we weren't in a social distancing thing, I would buy you a beer or, give you a hug or I don't know, whatever it is you need for extra support on that. But that is a big part of it, is that Jacob was working his ass off trying to get it addressed. Because, the WebGL version of the game, the porting to WebGL, is primarily his responsibility. I also, it's not to say that your feedback is invalid, because it is. All feedback is valid. So, I've shuffled stuff around. That is also that will also give you some insight as to why the web version of the game that's on Armor Games and Congregate and C&E Games sometimes takes longer to update. It's programmed in a completely different way than the Steam version of the game, and it has to be. It's not easily ported over. It has to basically be redone. So, so WebGL sucks. I don't think WebGL sucks, Dread Cactus. It just, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to do. And Jacob is on it. I mean, he works so damn hard to make sure it happens. It's not the first time he's done stuff like this. Like, when there's a bug that he's trying to fix or he's trying to make sure that something works in time, he has done all-nighters on more than one occasion trying to make sure that stuff works for people. Like, he really, really cares. But I will, it's also fair to say that, that you're wondering why the delay happened, and that is why. Okay. Let's see. Has anybody seen a bug with the new Hunter Potion Timer? I opened it after the event started, and it already ran off 42 hours. That is a great question, Mycroft Jones. I suspect... I think some of the intention with some of the potions that had timers was they were only active for a narrow window that's already defined, as opposed to right when you activate the potion. So I'm going to pass that along to the dev team to see if I can't get that to make sure that that's intended or not a bug. Okay. Let's see. One of the planned streams for last year's 24-hour live stream day, I believe, involved character design and behind-the-scenes content. Are there any plans for future streams with content like that? Yes. Now, I suspect, so that was a show that Justin was going to do. He wanted to work with the community and walk you guys through his design process for creating, I suspect it was just champions in Idle Champions, but it might have been beyond that. I'm not sure about the entire scope of it. But he was going to walk you through creating a champion. And he told us what champion he was going to create in advance on our end, just because for fun. And I suspect what has happened with that is that he has postponed that to whenever we can, whenever we get an opportunity to do another Extra Life 24-hour live stream. Yeah, so that would be my guess. That particular stream is not planned to be done again anytime soon. But I will certainly make a note for Justin to be like, hey, players wanted this. And we can possibly get it done. U5, where to put a code? Oh, sorry, I wish I'd seen this sooner. So, God, I have a lot of chests. If you go to the chest screen, which you can access in two places, depending on the version of the game, you can access it from here as well. There'll be a little locked chest in the console version of the game, but in the Steam version of the game, you just go to chests, and there's this little locked one sitting here off to the side with this chains around it, and you click on it, and it loads the code interface. So, whoop, Ook McKay art. Boom. Well, Rainstorm 1987. The reason I have so many chests is because I kept on hand all the chests that are available as part of the 2021 combinations, so that you could see them in my interface. And the silver ones, man, you just accumulate those so fast these days. They just show up. And then the Ariza ones I haven't opened yet. But yeah, so that's why I have so many chests. And the reason I have all the ones for the 2021 combinations is because I tested every single code as I made it to make sure that they were working, because sometimes codes get doubled up, and when they get doubled up, the original one's expiry date takes precedent. So if you accidentally try to make the same code 2 times, it expires whenever the first one does. So I've made that mistake before. All right. Bump, bump. Any option we can get any chance we can get the option to pin achievements? Okay, I will make a note for that. I think that's a really cool quality of life feature that I personally would like to see, and I appreciate it when it's in other games. Now, somebody was asking something about today. Oh, you weren't. I was just commenting. Our Green Paradox today's Hasbro announcements are going to be interesting for Wizards of the Coast. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff announced today that was news to us. Stuff that I never thought I would see. Things like Magic the Gathering sets based on Warhammer 40,000 and Lord of the Rings. I was like, my head just that was my head exploding. That's what that was. Did not expect. Very, very curious to see where that goes. It's interesting. It opens some really, really interesting doors. Yeah. So, yeah, that's cool. And then also, as somebody who has at times been very into Warhammer 40K, which I'm assuming it's all going to be more modern Warhammer 40K storytelling with the Primarch Robut Guilliman, I don't know how you say his name, being active and probably having a super awesome mythic legendary card, and the new versions of Space Marines but I'm very, very curious. Are all the Chaos Marines going to be black aligned or red? Who knows? Where does Khorne fit into all of this? Anyway, so it's interesting. And then Lord of the Rings, what? They also announced more shows, some organizational shuffling that, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Somebody in chat saying that the Marnius Calgar Warhammer 40K comic from Marvel is amazing. I've heard that. I haven't read anything lately. Are Ultramarines blue and Blood Angels red? Basically, yes. Each chapter of Space Marines, I don't know why I'm going into this, Each chapter of Space Marines has their own color palette that's approved, and Ultramarines is the most recognizable one in that they are basically blue with, they're blue with white Omega symbols on them, and yeah, we shall see. Trontonian says that they had a university professor who was a respected Warhammer author. Which one? Dan Abnett? I'm curious now. You must tell me. You don't have to tell me. I'm curious. Anyways, sorry. Back to actual Idle Champions questions. Let's see. Would it be possible to get an option in the settings to turn off damage numbers? Well, I gotta say, Skater Guy, nobody's actually asked for that before. Huh. I don't know. Maybe? I don't know if that's something that's doable or not for us with the way that we designed the game. Is there some kind of stats page in game? Would be nice to know how long you played, highest zone, etc. There isn't. So this is actually something that Peter talked about when he was on stream a few weeks ago, in that we get a lot of requests for stats, but we often get very different requests from stats from players. And what he would need as a developer in order to get to work on either a stat screen or ways to show additional stats in Idle Champions is a definitive list of the stats that need to be shown so that he could do it one time and never do it again, basically. It would be something that we don't add to after that. We would build some section of the game possibly that shows statistics, but that's it. So maybe this is something that we need to create a poll for players or something, like to find out exactly what it is you want to see, because we do fairly regularly get requests for stats, but they're often they're often different. What's wrong with doing different iterations and starting from Crusaders of the Lost Idol stat screen? I think it's honestly it's when we would devote cycles to it and how we would prioritize it. Like, it's not so much everything or nothing as we have as players can tell, we have a pretty aggressive content pipeline that keeps us very busy, and then we're also working on bug fixes and quality of life stuff ongoing, and we're developing across many platforms now, which creates more complications. And in order to dedicate developer cycles to address something like that, like what we're not likely to have is a developer who is always working on stats who can do periodic updates to it over months or years. What is more likely to happen with the way that everything is organized is that one or two developers gets assigned to this, and they have a window of time they can work on it, and so they want whatever they make to be as definitive as possible, because they don't know when they'll get another chance to iterate on it. So it's not an everything or nothing philosophy, and it's not that we don't want to iterate on something. It's more like trying to think about it in terms of how we block off cycles of time for people to work on stuff. Getting more quality of life suggestions. Just gonna write those down. Okay. Dylan, who's your favorite champion thematically? That's a tough question. There are a lot of really cool champions. I have an inherent bias to champions like Warden and Turiel and Lazaps because I wrote them. I didn't design them per se, but I wrote like their bios and helped to design them, and so I definitely have some bias there. There's something just profoundly awesome and just legendary about having Melf in the game. The Melf. And then also like getting to coordinate and work with Luke Gygax on Melf. Like working with Luke Gygax on Melf was the last meeting we had at the end of 2019, like the last meeting of the year, Friday afternoon before Christmas break. On a call with Melf himself, Luke Gygax, and he's telling us stories about growing up playing D&D with Gary Gygax, his dad, and like just telling Melf stories, like, I did this, and this is where Melf Melf's Minute Meteors came from, and this is what I was playing at the time. I was playtesting Tomb of Horror, and you're just like, it was just amazing. So it's like, there's the like the absolute legendariness of a character like Melf. I think a lot of the characters that people have created are really, really awesome. You know, like Rhiannon's Sentry, you know, that she coordinated with Mark Hulmes on for High Rollers is a really, really great character. Talon is a really, really great character. Sorry, Krydle. You know, huge fan of Esmeralda and Cesaspia, and of course Deacon. Let's see who else is in here that I really, really like. Krond and Krull and Evelyn and Shandy are all awesome. Minsk is always going to be an awesome character. Freely is always going to be an awesome character. Human is always going to be an awesome character. I think maybe I would go with Lazaps. And the reason is that I feel like there's a lot of character in Lazaps evident from the bio and the design of the champion. You know, 90% of champions just look badass, and like that's kind of just how we do it, how we roll. We want them to look badass, and I think specifically that Lazaps looks fun. You know, you know, they're just a fun-looking character. You know, and I think that it was also an opportunity where our working on the comic with Luke really shined for us in that it helped us to build even more character for Lazaps in just a handful of appearances outside the game. You know, there's the comic where Lazaps is with Wolfgar and Turiel, super excited about bright swords, and they're not. And then there's the other one where Lazaps just wants to buy an infernal war machine for the parts, and Zorbu's convincing her not to. So yeah, so Melf and Lazaps, I guess, is what I'm going with. I don't know about the name Lazaps though. God, Chris Dupuis, Lazaps. Alrighty. Is there any chance we can get an option to turn off special effects or some of them? Game performance drops when there's a lot on consoles. Very noticeable with the snow and ice and Dale. Oh, okay. I will make a note of that for the dev team, because I know we are able to turn down special effects in the Steam version of the game. So, what are the progress we can get? The chances we can get an in progress option for event tabs in achievements? I don't know. I will throw that at the dev team. Oh, the Kraken fight. Hold on. I love this fight. The only problem is I used to release the Kraken code the very first time we did Fleet's Wake, and now I can't use it again. Sad face. Super cool. And it's an adolescent Kraken, right? Like, it's smaller and weaker than the normal ones. That's why our party of adventurers were able to defeat it. And I automatically went past it without having to change the auto progress. That's good. Release another Kraken? Yeah. If our code system had that much room. This is a funny question. Is it C&E company policy that all computers are left on overnight with your idle champions running for all to look over your shoulder and see how you play? It is not. You know, I gotta say, once you've been working on a game for a long time, your relationship with it changes. And I still play, and I still make sure I complete all the variants as they come out. But, you know, when I go home at night, I set up my formations to do stuff automatically overnight, and I don't load it again until the next day. Certainly there are players who are far more active than me, but it only stopped you on 50, 150, 250 and was fine on 100, 200, 300 Garwar. That is so weird. Why would that matter? All right. now that Idle Champions has switched to Electrum chests, are there going to be any in-game ways of upgrading champion items like you can in Crusaders of Lost Isles? That's not something that we're currently looking at, CryptoNim, and it's not something that's currently, as far as I'm aware, planned. There have been casual internal discussions in the past about the ideas of different kinds of crafting systems for the game, but we've never had an idea that we liked enough to pursue, and so it's still kind of up in the air. So I'm not saying it's never going to happen, but it's not something that we're planning on right now. Can we get more goblins, please? Hey, I agree. I mean, don't get me wrong, I still want a Kenku and a Triton and a million other races, but more goblins is always good. In the setting menu, there is a Razer support click box. What does that setting do? So if you have Razer gaming peripherals, specifically a Razer keyboard and mouse that like lights up with LEDs, Razer support will activate with it. It'll highlight keys on your keyboard, and sometimes it'll do things depending on whether you cast an ultimate ability that like it animates stuff on your keyboard. It's I wouldn't say it's the most robust integration you've ever seen, but it is there. We did a thing with Razer in 2018, I think, for that. It was kind of neat. How about Grung? Yeah, Grung too. Let's see. Oh, I need a drink. My throat's getting dry. Let's see. Is there a place possibly on the Discord where the third achievement for Year 1 champions is listed? Like, use X skill for Y duration. Getting all equipment and or all three variants will just pop up when completed, but usually the other has a specific requirement. Yeah, that's a good point, Mycroft Jones. Especially, for the Year 1 champions that are no longer available, and not that far in the future, the Year 2 champions that are no longer available. There's no way to look that up, so I will flag that. Flag that for the dev team. Let's see. Can we have a formation save option that is neutral, where you can load them in any new formation you've never done a formation on, instead of having to place them one by one? It just places the heroes that you have saved, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that's something that's easy or difficult for the devs, but I can pass the feedback along your opponent. That would be for... after you turn on the Razer support, what do you have to do to trigger it? As I understand it, and I've never actually used this myself, using something like Ashara's ultimate ability will animate part of the keyboard. That's assuming that you have it set so that your game can be impacted by, or your keyboard can be impacted by games. Honestly, it's not something I've looked at in quite a long time, but there was a time when we had that functionality quite active, and people were asking us why it turned on. So it's funny to see things that went that far. Can you speak about the math behind the game and what it's like coming up with it and developing it? I cannot. That is a question for Justin. I think somebody tried to ask that last week. It might have been you as well. That is something that only Justin can speak of when he is here. I certainly can't. Is there a specific Razer add-on you need to have installed? I don't know. I just know that... as I understand it, it should be like up-to-date Razer drivers and the ability for your game to turn them, like to activate them. Because I know, like, for example, I have a I have a Corsair keyboard and a Logitech mouse here, and I have them both set not to allow games to mess with them because I find it distracting when my LEDs are changing up on the screen below my eyesight because it makes me look down. Yeah. Okay, so the only way to get earlier champions is through time gates. Yeah, there are the naturally occurring, the time gates that go live in between events. So like, once, like last weekend. So this past weekend there was a time gate that opened on Friday that was random. Time gates when they open try to give you a champion you've never seen before. If you don't have them, and a champion from year one, as well as so there's some randomness to it, but like it tries to give you champions that you haven't seen, and then if you what's the word I'm looking for? If you open your own time gate, you can just pick whichever champion you want to go for, and just go for it. Have you sent image art to Lee yet? I have not given Sean and Lee the pancake art yet for this week. I've been real busy. Let's see. I'm not sure I understand the nature of your Modron automation bug, Agaron. Like, it sounds like a bug, but I'm not sure I understand it as you've described it. After so many Bardic Inspiration episodes, do you feel like you can add composer and songwriter to your resume? Certainly not composer. I have never contributed anything to the melody or the chords or anything like that for any of the songs we've done. Composer is strictly Jason Charles Miller. I could technically add songwriter in that I have helped to write 24 songs now. Yeah. So no to composer, but certainly to writer writer for hit songs, right? Yeah. That makes me want to play one of those songs. Yeah. Oh man. Bardic Inspiration is a real treat. I've had a lot of fun doing it. It's been a real joy, a real fun exercise in creativity on a almost weekly basis. And working with Jason was a lot of fun. Some of the songs have turned out really fantastic. They're not always the ones that you expect. Like, I would not have thought, if anybody had asked me in advance, that hey, when you guys get around to doing a Taylor Swift inspired song, it'll be one of the best ones. And I'd be like, no, it won't. And while I would not personally put it in our top 3 to 5 songs, it did turn out really, really good. Yeah. And for those wondering, I'd probably, in my top 3 songs, definitely have the Brimstone Angels one, definitely have the Strahd Drop of Time song, and definitely have probably Deacon's Song of Doom. Because that one is just, yeah. I don't know. What do you guys think about the music? Like, do you like it? I know that, I don't know. I mean, we enjoy making it, and people do show up to help us write the songs. So presumably, some of you also enjoy it. But do you feel like it's a worthwhile thing? Like, what would you like to see from Bardic Inspiration? More of it. Warden is the best song. IMO. Oh, you're too fine. You're too kind, Alpha Crawl. Yeah, that was an interesting one. Like, it's been a pretty neat experience getting to do. Did I? At some point, we made a document where we shared. Yeah, this must be it. The lyrics E1 to 20. This has to be the one that we shared to everybody, right? I think. Anybody can view it if you have the link. So, just putting it back in chat. Yeah, I mean, we got to write a song about Elminster with Ed Greenwood. How awesome is that? That was super cool. Yeah, the Moneylender Mert turned out amazing. That one was definitely one of the better ones too. Yeah. And like the Metallica fan in me is always gonna like the Torgar Steelfist song because it's basically a Metallica song. Deacon's Song of Doom is right up there. That one is so good. Brimstone Angels Go 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 is super great. Drop of Time is my favorite. I gotta say, it really is. And man, like even the first one, Greatest Dwarven King, that was so good. It turned out so good. Anyways, yeah. Getting distracted by that, and it's almost time to wrap up the show. So I think I'm going to wrap this up with... Alright, we got a couple questions. I'm just going to try and go through this as quickly as possible, and then I'm going to end the show! Which champion would you suggest to a new player? First pick? Oh, that's tough. The meta tends to shift periodically. I think I would go with a speed champion first, if you're going to pick one first. Possibly Briv Steelmarrow, he might be the best one. Averin is a phenomenal buffer in slot 11. Why we made Todd so overpowered, I don't know, but he's overpowered. He's in slot 11. Let's see. Dardian saying that they pop potions to get to a higher level and then ended up getting their potions running out and then getting pushed back. Honestly, Dardian, I think what you might need to do is reset and take your favor into another run so you can level up further. That's what it sounds like to me. I'm sure people in chat, if you ask, can give you more detailed advice. Master Burglar, question. I'd love to have Bardic Inspiration songs added to Intermission of the Unfair Seas. That's a good idea. Have you done a real up-tempo number for Shandy yet? Yeah, our fourth song was a song for Shandy that was pretty up-tempo. And finally, last question of the day. Are there chances for studio recordings of Bardic Inspiration songs? I mean, there's always a chance. Yeah, there's always a chance. Anyways, this has been Idle Insights for Thursday, February 25th, 2021. Next week is March. Thank you for joining me today, for joining Luke and me, for joining all of us, for joining this community, for being cool participants in the Idle Champions and Dungeons & Dragons community. You guys are awesome. This show exists because of lots of amazing people behind the scenes. Most importantly, co-producer, moderator Sasha, as well as our partners at Dungeons & Dragons. And finally, a huge thanks to Luke McKay for being awesome. But also, for joining me today to talk about comics and D&D, because that's super cool. Take care, everybody. Have an amazing week and excellent end of your Thursday. And presumably, I hope it's a good episode of Critical Role tonight that I am encouraging you to watch for no reason in particular. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.